powerful. Our staff for years has prided themselves on the idea that we go to the ends of the earth for kids, sometimes at that sacrifice to ourselves. And so that oxygen mask was really a helpful analogy. It gave a lot of our staff members permission for the first time to really kind of take care of themselves. And by taking care of themselves, they were going to be in a better place for kids. And so I thought that was really, really helpful. I think our wonderful support through the Hearts program came at a perfect time. We were all set, people were ready, they had some knowledge. A lot of the teachers talked about the difference between that lizard and that wizard brain, knowing that when kids are in their lizard brain, I might be there as well, and we're not going to have a very productive conversation. And so giving kids space, choice, time, just those kind of things will help a whole lot more than I'm the teacher and I'm right, and so you need to do what I say. Not that was a common theme, but it was really kind of, we put some parameters to that. And then it came to us at a perfect timing. We had by far the most impactful year in my 30 years in last year at our school. And so to have that support there for staff and for students in a really, really difficult time was so very powerful, very powerful. Last year, they gave us some strategies, and I talked to some of the teachers about what were the strategies that really helped. And a couple of them were giving kids space, right? When kids get in wherever they are from the trauma that they've been through, is to give them space. You know, we don't have to press, and we don't have to press. Our staff has always prided themselves on building relationships. We're like a family. But we pushed it even harder to try and make connections. One of the words that I think I first heard from Megan was we got to connect and then redirect. And in the classroom, it's really easy for our teachers to connect. But in the hallways, sometimes it's a little bit more challenging to connect, right? And so often our staff would just say, hey, you need to be, hey, you need to be. And some of the language, the simple things like, hey, how are you? What's going on today? Now where are you supposed to be? And so that idea of just kind of that connect before you redirect kids was really, really helpful. The other thing that's been really good for me is, I'm sure our district's the only one that has a lot of initiatives. Everybody else probably just has one, right? But the trauma-informed care really is going to kind of help us connect culturally relevant instruction along with the trauma care. You know, let's give kids some choice. Let's create relationships. Let's look at it from an asset-based rather than deficit-based. I thought that was really, really helpful. It's kind of taken our relationships to the next level. Some of the strategies, the connection circles, the restorative justice piece, has really allowed a lot of our relationships to kind of go to a next level, which has been really, really helpful. And then we have an initiative in our district around innovation. And really, the idea of innovation is it's new and it's productive. It's new and it's useful. And so for us, this trauma lens for students is new to a lot of us, and it really is productive. And it just can kind of lead to some choices in the classroom. So that's kind of where the positive has been. There's been some challenges, absolutely. One of them is kind of confronting that idea of we talk a lot about it, but are we walking the talk? And so it provides the language, but sometimes that language can be a cover for, well, I'll say this in public, but privately maybe I believe something else. Maybe I don't believe the kids are doing the very best they can. And so that's been a challenge, certainly. And I think with the turnover of the staff, right, we learned a whole lot in our first year. And now we have 40 new people. So how do we catch up and move forward all at the same time? And so that really that's a challenge as well. So, and I think sometimes in the whispers in the background, I hear some of our staff say, you know, things like, "Are we just letting kids get away with it? Is this an excuse?" And so I feel like when adults reach that point, like, oh man, enough is enough, well, our brain goes to the easy part. And the easy part is like, well, you know, they really should just be able to follow the rules. They should just be able to fill in the blank. And so that's that. Lots of conversations around that as we move forward. So that's one person's statement.
Can you hear me as well? Are we good? Microphone back there? Are we good? All right, thank you. So I'll just pick up and just say what he said. Go ahead, your turn. So really, I guess if I think about anything that I would add in addition to what Jeff said, if I was to distill it down to maybe a few things, I think one of the really critical pieces for us is that we do have some common language now. And people, instead of just like, what's wrong with that kid, are really starting to try and step back and say what happened to them. I think that really has given us a different way to help shift, and sometimes I believe if we just at least shift the language, even if our thinking is not right there, the thinking can kind of come along, and when we say some things, and when we can actualize what they look like in the space where we are with students. And so one of the things that I found is that a lot of teachers who, prior to our training, didn't really talk to me about some of the personal challenges that they had, started coming to me, and it was like it was okay now to acknowledge that, yes, as people living in this society, you also have some trauma that you may be bringing in, and that may impact or even potentially escalate the trauma of some of the students that you're working with. And so I really think that when Jeff speaks to this training coming to us at a critical time, honestly, in reality, it could not have come at a better time. And in many, many ways, it saved the life of prayer because of what it was able to foster amongst the adults with each other, and what it was able to foster with not every adult. They didn't take these things. And not just with adults primarily, but certainly with many students. It was able to save some really critical relationships. Really make us do a lot of self-observation and some self-reflection and really think about what is the interplay between what we bring and what kids bring. And I just think that for us, we were able to open up a space even for adults to come together and just talk about how tough the year was. We had people who were first year folks in our building come to people like Jeff who's been there, sort of like he carries the mantle, so to speak. And to myself, this is my 4th year in the building. But I think really overall the impact that it's had in terms of being able to shift the thinking, or at least help people step back and say, what did I miss? What am I missing? When I look at a student's written assignment, for example, what do I notice now that I didn't notice before? What am I concerned about now that I wasn't concerned about before? Or what did I let slide before? And because I thought of it in a different kind of capacity than the way I think about it now. I think that's really been some of the critical pieces for us. And then just having the expertise to consult with and to step in places where we really feel like we need a person maybe somewhat one step removed from some of the interpersonal relationships with the other teachers in the building has been absolutely incredible for us. So I think it's been a way for us to not only just look at what the challenge is that kids bring, but also certainly the restorative piece that we embedded in that, and then without question, I think certainly for many of us, what does that say about our Black and brown kids in particular when they have a different level of trauma or additional trauma that's coming into the space because of the skin they walk in? And what's it look like for LGBTQI plus students? And what is the trauma that may be unfolding for them as they go through a process of really being comfortable with the skin that they're in as well? So I think it's really helped us to look at many pieces in many ways.
Well, I'm in a little bit of a different position because I recently left the school that I started at, where I started with Hearts, and I've moved on to a new school as an administrator there. But what I can tell you is that as I was leaving one school and getting ready to go to another was that quotes from teachers that resonated with me, and the biggest one that resonated with me was that if it weren't for hearts, I wouldn't still be a teacher. Many of our teachers said that as we were thinking about like what components do they need to carry on themselves without me being at the helm at that particular school. Students also would talk to me and tell me that I was a wizard. And when I asked more about why, it was because when they were so mad that they didn't even think they could calm down, I was able to help them get to that place where they were back in control. So they felt like there was some sort of magic that happened to that. All those things could never have been done without my learning and my growth through the Harvard program. I can implement all their systems and all the different pieces that work in place, but what really has happened is that my lens of how I respond and how I treat kids has changed fundamentally, and I can never go back to the way I once was. I first always let kids give me their story. They always need to be the ones that are heard. And then once I hear their story and we start to dig into what was going on and how maybe we could have thought about things differently, and then what skills they need to build to get there, I'm much more able to reach them and support them when thinking about how to make those changes so that they can feel more successful. So I guess that's the biggest piece that I've learned and that I carry with me every place I go, is that like I hear their story and I support them, I support teachers, and I help all of you work through it so that we can best make sure our kids learn in any situation.
Don't you want her to say something? I'm Jen Murtha. I'm the principal at Lansing. I don't think it's possible for me to talk about Hearts without first talking about the story of Lansing. We've only done 2 years of Hearts, so we're kind of a baby Hearts school. And we are exactly, we're 85% free and reduced lunch, Title I. We are really a diverse community. And Hearts came to me my second year there. And they said, here's this great system. We're going to do book clubs on reaching and teaching children who are hurt, which I recommend that book for anyone, particularly people in education. We're going to eat up a whole lot of your PD time and talk about trauma-informed practice. We'd also like to eat up some of your PD time and do like yoga with teachers. And then also, we'd like to take lots of your time to plan all of these things. So I was like, probably not. That's going to happen there. And then I started to watch my children, and they needed a connection. They needed to be beyond punitive measures. We needed to talk about implicit and explicit bias in a very real way at our school. And I knew that this was the venue that we were going to get that done. And so we have. We're still working on it. We don't have it all figured out. But our second year in Hearts, which was last year, well, let me talk about the first year. So the first year, I had to kind of come around on some things, right? Like, I was in priority improvement. I was not willing to give up a lot of PD time. Definitely wasn't going to give up PD time for art response and yoga for teachers. That wasn't happening, right? And then a Hearts consultant came to me and showed me some research about the brain and said, if you don't reset, you can probably plan on losing most of your staff. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. So, okay, you get to do that. And the feedback that first year was incredible from teachers. Like, finally you're recognizing our needs. Finally someone is saying, thank you for listening to the whole teacher, the whole child. We're on the right path, let's keep going. We decreased our attendance issues by 25% that year. We moved into performance that year. We did have a significant amount of turnover, that's my issue. And then we reduced our suspensions and our referrals by 10% in 1 year. And that's doing nothing differently. We didn't implement a new behavior system, we didn't implement new PBIS measures, nothing. We just had Hearts. And so just being informed was the difference. And then the last year was a really hard year for us. We went into turnaround. and there were so many people in our, if you've ever been in turnaround before, everyone starts to live at your building, and you're kind of not the greatest people ever because clearly you need help. And so we had 10 of the toughest kids I have ever worked with. We call them, at Lansing, we call them the kids we love the most. And you know, exactly the backgrounds you can imagine. We cut our staff by almost 8% because of budget cuts in the district. So we had no tier 2 support, none. We had dwindling tier 3 support. We were literally surviving. And here's the data I can share with you from last year. We had 0 teacher turnover. We had 0 classified turnover, which is almost unheard of. We got out of turnaround. We're in barely hanging on in improvement, because I know someone's back there Googling and see. But we're in improvement, right? And so for us to be in that much of a crisis last year, and still come out of it with some level of resilience, we're starting with sort of justice work. I mean, that's hearts. That's not the principal. That's hearts. So because there's consultation for teachers, because we have a peace corner in every single classroom, because we have a planning center where kids can go and just kind of de-escalate and then get back to class, because we have parent classes, because we are working as a staff on the similar language, like I heard you at Carrie talk about, that's the reason we're in the situation that we're in. We, like I said, we're a baby school, we're just learning that that's the evidence that it is effective.